Okay, so for those of us that are still having issue with what we did last time, I believe you will still catch up because the very first part of today's assignment is an extension of what we did last time. I sent us additional data set this morning. I don't know if we have seen it. I encourage us to download it and keep it. I may be working with that data set this morning as well with the first one we got from Kaggle. So the idea of working with 2 or more data sets as an analyst is for you to have different ideas. Sometimes when you're analyzing only one particular type of data, you might be limited in terms of creativity and ability to draw insight from different data sets, because each data has different experience. So let me see if I can open that data set, because I really want us to use it. What is the name? Okay, so this is the data set I sent to us. So this data set is about is an employee payroll data set. As you can see the headers we have here. We have serial number, we have employee's name, we have employee's ID, we have states, we have sex, we have department, we have status, we have grades, we have hire date, we have basic salary, we have group allowance, we have medical allowance, we have transportation allowance, we have gross benefits. Is
benefits.
audio is not clear. Let me know. Not sure if this network is strong enough. Let me switch to MTN before we start. Okay, so we have, I'm trying to walk us through the data as one of the requirement I told us in the last class, that whenever you are given a new data set, you must go through it to understand the structure and the values in that data set. So we have annual 80% loan. We have monthly repay 6.6%. We have gross liability. We have tax, monthly repay 6.6%, and then we have net salary. Then remember, I also show us how to check. I also show us how to check the width of your data frame. So to do that, you select the first feature or the first label, then hold down the Control and the Shift key, then press the right arrow button. And that will give us information about the total numbers of features or label in the data set. So if you check where I am navigating at the bottom here, Excel have counted the selected features to be 21 heading. So that is a whole lot of data. Then if you want to also check the series, that is the value, how many records are in this data frame. We also start by selecting the first record, hold out the same control button and the shift button, then hit the down arrow button. The cell will also count that for us. So Excel is actually giving us 3 different analyses. The average of those, but that is not our focus. So our focus is the count analysis, which is 150 staffs. 150 unique employees in this payroll. So that is part of what we did, but let me switch my network first because I want to be sure that I have strong network. All right. Then there was another data set which we got from Kaggle. I think it was supermarkets. So we have already gone through this data set. I don't think anybody should be having issue with this data set. So we choose any one we want to work with, depending on the questions before us. So let me go back to my slide. So these are the lists of topics we plan to cover in this section. Looking at aggregate analysis with advanced statistical functions, such as sum ifs, count ifs, average ifs. There you will learn how to draw insight from data with the above functions. Then we'll also look at how to use OpenAI. It's supposed to be AI, not IA. So we'll also learn how to use OpenAI to derive data analysis questions from a given data set, leveraging on natural language. Then we'll also look at building data analysis automated system / dynamic dashboards with Excel lookup function. And then we'll look at reporting findings with Microsoft PowerPoint. So just give me 1 minute. That out before we proceed properly. So this was a data set. I know I saved it somewhere. Let me see if I can open exactly what we did. I thought I saved it that day. Okay, does it mean I did not save it? Let me check, maybe. Okay, this was the workbook we used for the analysis of our last class. So Ms. Glory, if you can unmute yourself and let us know the area that is not clear to you. Okay, you say you did not do the assignment, not that it's not clear, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay. Now I get you. Okay, so probably by the time you go through the video to implement it, we will know whether there is any question or not. The same thing to others. So let's just quickly dive into today's assignments. Hmm. Let's use the same data sets. Okay, so let's take those functions one after the other. And once I've explained one, then we'll go for each application. I think with that, we will understand it. Now, the set of functions we used the other time, like I told us in that class, falls under functions for data mining analysis or data exploratory analysis. They are functions that we use in exploring data. In other words, to draw insight from a given data. And this set of function or the analysis you perform with this function falls under aggregate analysis because you are not presenting a single metric value. You are presenting comparison analysis. That is, you are actually performing categorical analysis, or let's say you are working with categorical data. Why I said you are working with categorical data is that the variables you are analyzing their values is more than one. For example, we have, I think the analysis we did the other time, we analyzed the gross income per branch. And if you check the branch column, we have three different unique value. So which means that it is a categorical data. You have three different categories of branches. You were trying to compare their gross income. Now, if you were to be a single metric analysis, it will have been maybe sum of all the gross income generated from all the city. That is going to give you just one value. Now, those ones cannot actually analyze or cannot be used beyond one criteria analysis. For example, if let me just switch to the data, I think we'll understand it better. What we did last time, or let me just assume that we are asked to summarize the value in total column against the branches, the unique branches. So the unique branch, the branches are the categorical data, while these are the values you are summarizing against them. That was a single criteria analysis because the value here will be summed up based on a selected branch. What about if the question demands that summarize the total value per branch where gender is equals to female? That is two criteria analysis. And then if it proceeds to for only health and beauty product, that is three criteria analysis. or it's even added where quantity is less than 5. That is 4 criteria analysis. Now, the reason why I'm giving us this picture so that we can clearly differentiate the set of functions we are focusing on in this section from the one we did the other time. So in summary, the sum if, the count if, and the average if, which were the major functions we use, they are only used for single criteria exploration analysis. Now, why we are introducing this set of functions today so that we can go beyond one criteria analysis, like the explanation I just gave. And the difference between this function and the previous function is the addition of s. The addition of x. Now, once you involve the s, it means that you want to go beyond one criteria analysis. So by definition, the sum if function calculates the sum of cells in a range that meets multiple, the focus here is what? Multiple criteria. Multiple criteria. Now, as a professional data analyst, the layman, the person you are working with, may not be the one, in fact, will not be the one, say if you are lucky that the person is also in the field, that will be able to construct the question to suit your analysis. But most time, it is your responsibility to analyze the question itself so that you know which of the functions are to be involved. Like once the question go beyond one criteria, then you should know that at that point, whether you are performing some summary analysis or counting analysis or average analysis, you have to involve the multiple criteria version, which is the one with the S. Now, let's look at the syntax. What do we mean by syntax? Syntax in programming, they are rules that governs the format of writing code. That is the meaning of the word syntax, because we'll be using this even when we get to Python. Every programmer, whenever he or she wants to write a particular code or you want to speak a particular language, being it Python, being it Java, or any other programming language, you have to, first of all, understand the syntax of that language. How does that language write its code is what we mean by what? Syntax. Now, when I say syntax, it means that I am about explaining the format, the way you are to write this function. Now, the format is that you start by calling the function sum ifs. After that, you open the parenthesis bracket. Then inside the parenthesis bracket, you have to supply different arguments. I think I've explained that in one of our classes. I said, once a function is activated, the function will then request for certain data to produce the desired result. And those inputs that you give to the function to perform the task, they are called arguments. But in this case, we can translate them to data. They are information that you give to the function to produce the desired results. Now, let me explain everything you have inside the parenthesis bracket. They are different arguments that you must supply. So pay attention as I explain them, because once you understand this explanation, by the time I get to the application, is to be very simple for you. Now, the first argument here is the sum range. And I want us to take note of something. You can see that each of these arguments are separated by a comma. So which means once you have supplied the sum range data as an argument, then you insert a comma before you supply the next argument. That is how you keep, imputing the comma at the end of each argument definition. So let's get that understood. Now, sum range. What is the sum range? Now, the function itself you are working with, which is a sum if, is an aggregate function, is a function that summarizes numbers. Remember in our last class, I talked about data types in programming. We have integer, or we have number data type. Under number data type, we have two categories of programming numbers. Every programmer either work with an integer or work with double or float number. Now, the integer is a whole number. For example, if I write 80 without involving decimal units, in programming, such a number is referred to as integer. Then double or float means a number with decimal points or units. For example, if I write 80.5, that is not an integer in programming. That is a float or double number type. Now, if I write my name, Prosper, Prosper is not a number data type. Prosper is called string. String, they are character-based data type. For example, sum if is a text. Function is a text. D is a text. I just want us to understand that. Now, let's relate it to what I am explaining, sum range. Now, this sum range is to acknowledge that the function works basically with number data type, which could be what? The float or the integer that I just explained now. So what this tells you and I is that any argument you are supplying here must be number type. You cannot supply, for example, now if you go to the data set now, I cannot supply branch range here. I can only supply total because total is a number type. I can only supply gross income or quantity. That is what this argument is saying. Please take note of it. It must be a number type. Now, the next argument is criteria range 1. Criteria range 1 is the definition of the range in your data set where the first criteria reside. Let me break it down. After defining your criteria range 1, you are going to supply your criteria 1. Now, your criteria 1 is the first condition for the summary that will take place here. And that condition is a value, is a variable in one of the feature, in one of the label. Now, where that value that will be mentioned here as the criteria is in your data set, the range of the column, the range of cell with different value in that column, they are what you are to reference here. Then comma, criteria range 2. Criteria range 2 is the range where your second criteria is or will be derived from. And then before you supply what? The second criteria. Then once you add a comma, it will now bring out what? Criteria range 3. Then comma, the criteria range 3 will now be the range where the third criteria for the summary of the values you must have submitted here will be cut from. Then once you add a comma, it will keep providing different room for capturing different criteria range and different criteria. So there is no limit until it gets to the point where even you feel that it's no longer going to make sense before you stop. That is why I said that meet multiple criteria. So it does not stop at 2 criteria, neither 3 criteria or 4 criteria. So you will be the one to determine the end. Now, I cited an example here which does not align with the data we are working with, but for the purpose of the slide explanation. Then here, example, I call the function SUMIFs. Then this is the sum range. This is sum range. So this sum range can be the range of my total, can be the range of my gross income, where the value that will be summarized are the comma. Then this is the criteria. This is the criteria range. Remember, this is constant. This is where the first condition will be cut from. And like I've highlighted here, the values are in A2 toward A10. So we are referencing a cell argument here. Then we supply the criteria to be not. So this is a sales inventory where they collected record from north, from south, from west, from east. And we wanted to calculate only sales from the north. So the north highlighted there in quotation is the criteria 1. And that north is recorded in a column A2 towards A10, where the person that collected the data must have entered north, south, west, and the rest of them. So, but what we are doing here is that out of those entries, we are focusing or selecting only record from north. So this is the first criteria. And then here we selected another range where we have sales and other type of value. But here we are also picking sales. Then in summary, before we go for the application, sum of the value, I'm interpreting this expression now, sum of the values in cells D2 to D10, where the corresponding cell in this contain not, and the corresponding cell in this range contain sales. That is the explanation of this. So like I said, this is not, this does not correspond with the data set we are working with, but I just brought this for us to understand. I don't want us to be switching to the Excel, because once I go there, I'll apply everything about this syntax before coming back to my slide. So I want to ask if you have any question as regard to the explanation of the function and its arguments. Okay, so let me assume there is no question. So let's go for the application now. Now, I told us that we'll be using AI at some point, because it's part of what you need to know as a data analyst. Because one of the challenges most analysts face, particularly beginners, is the ability to know what to analyze, to assume analysis question. So, but this day AI has made it very simple for you. All you need to do is to describe your data and tell AI to suggest possible questions. And then from there, you can now start picking those questions one after the other and analyzing them. Now, let's go back to our data set. So I want to continue with this dashboard that we created last time. But remember, we are focusing on the multiple criteria analysis function. So let me merge the whole of this cell. It's part of what we did the other time. Let me just use here to explain. That is multiple criteria analysis. So our first question here that will lead to the application of the sum if that I just explained now. Let's draft the question together. Supposing we are asked here, analyze the 5% tax. Company want to know the total 5% tax paid per city from only female, where quantity is greater than, let's say, 7. So let's go to our dashboard and put down the question. So let's say 2. Let me merge this together as well. So analyze the total five. Okay, let's follow the way the feature is described. Tax 5% per city, comma, where think what was the first? Okay, per city, where gender, good, where sex is equal to, or where sex is female. Try to remember where sex is female and quantity, QTY, is greater than 7. So this is the question. So this is our question. Let me make it more visible. So let me add some formatting just to make it unique with other ones. So I want somebody to unmute and tell us how many criteria are in this question. If somebody should unmute just to find out if you are following. How many criteria are in the question? Okay, let me call name. Okay, good. Miss Glory, go ahead.
Excuse me. Sorry, 4 criteria.
So can you identify the criteria?
Okay. The total tax of 5% is 1. Then the city is another criteria. Then the sex is another criteria, and then the quantity greater than 7 is another criteria.
Mr. Jolly, can you give us your explanation?
Of course I can.
Okay, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, we're looking at some ifs and then we're looking at the criteria.
Okay.
We analyze the total tax,
Okay. That's the first.
which is 5 range. But that total tax has conditions, which is bringing the criteria range.
Okay.
First criteria range is where sex is female.
Okay.
Then this one, then that's the criteria. Second one, sorry, per city.
Okay.
The second one, where the sex is female. And then the other one is where the quantity is greater than 7.
Okay, Mr. Solomon, hope you are here.
Yes, I am. I'm just waiting for you to call my name.
Oh, okay. Your audio is breaking anyway. So if you can, okay, let's just proceed because they got. I think now look at it here. I think the one Miss Glory said. She started by saying that 5% tax is one of the criteria. Do we all agree with that? That 5% tax is one of the criteria.
I think that is actually what you are summing. It's not a criteria.
Good. Good. That's
Me too. I feel that's what we are looking for. It's from there we now get further the criteria that we need.
Now, that's the only correction I wanted to make there. The total tax is the sum range, which I told us that is a constant, which represents the number data type. Then your criteria start from city is the first criteria. Sex is the second criteria. Then quantity greater than 7 is the third criteria. So if you check in total, we have 3 what? Criteria. Now let's answer the question. So for us to answer the question, we need to identify our dependent variable and our independent variable. These are part of what we did in our last class. Now, there is a principal criteria and there are sub-criteria. The principal criteria here is the city. That is the first mentioned criteria. Every time, because we cannot list all the independent variable, we actually have more than one independent variable here, unlike the other set of functions. Here we have city as independent variable. We have sex as another what? Independent variable. We have quantity as another independent variable. Now, why all these are independent variable? Because the summation of tasks, 5% tasks, depends on all these variables that I just mentioned. So which means that in this analysis, you only have one dependent variable, which is the task, 5%. Other ones, they are independent. Now, that doesn't mean that you will not list out the unique value for all the independent variable. Your analysis is going to be clustered, and at the end of the day, the interpretation will be very difficult for you. So what you do is that you identify the first and the main independent variable, which is the what? The city. So based on that, I will simply go back to my data set and call out the city value. Remember, it's part of what we did. Select the city header, hold down the control and the shift button. Then press the down arrow button. That will automatically highlight all the values in that column. So once you have done that, I'll press Ctrl C to copy all the value. Then switch back to your dashboard and then paste here, Ctrl V. So with this, I have duplicated all the values we have in that column. Now, the idea, what I want to do here is that I don't want to manually list out the unique values under city, because the analysis says that we should summarize this 5% based on other criteria against this listed city. So I only need one city to represent all the transactions made from that city in my data set. So I don't need a Yangon to be repeated. So why I copied it, because I want to remove duplicate. And to remove duplicate while the whole values are still selected, proceed to Data tab. From here, click on Remove Duplicate, and then identify the column with the duplicate value and click OK. So with this, I have removed all the duplicate. So I can now format, if I want, format the header. Then probably maybe want to enhance the appearance of this value. Fine. Now, after that, you will now write the total. Here you are analyzing the total task. That is what you are analyzing. So I can just simply type it, total task, total 5%. Or let me just write it the way it is, total task 5%. That is what you are analyzing. Now, let me also format it. Formatting is very important. So let me make the header different from the value. So just to make it unique. Okay, let me leave it like this for now. Now, this is where you will now activate your sum if equals to sum ifs. I will now go to the one with S, double click on it, and that will complete the function activation. Now, these are the arguments I have explained earlier on in our slide. Now, I said the first argument is the sum range. Now, I want somebody to tell us from our question here, which one do you think is the sum range? Mr. Jolly, can you identify the sum range from the question here? I'm trying to be very slow with it, because once we understand this first one, other ones are simple.
Range. Sorry, just a minute. I'm looking at it. It's some range here. Where it analyze total tax per 5. This is total tax now from the first cell to the last cell.
Good. That is the sum range. So we switch back to the data set and capture everything under this. Select the first one, hold down the control and the shift button, then hit the down arrow button. Then you capture everything under what? That header. Then comma, like I told us, once you have supply an argument, you add a comma. And then if you check the function here, this part is now deactivated, which means that what? We have implemented it. Now, the attention has shifted to a criteria range. Please, can you? Okay, let me. Okay, so the attention has shifted to criteria range 1. Now, like I was explaining in my slide, the criteria range 1 is the range where your criteria 1 value is. Our criteria 1 value is based on the selected city. So if we go back to the dashboard now and select Yangon, that is our criteria 1. So what Excel is asking for here is that criteria 1, which is the Yangon, it must be a value that has been captured within your data set. And the value was captured under what? City. So which means that my criteria range 1 is the selection of all the city in my data set. That is criteria range 1. Then add a comma. Then your criteria 1 is the city in your analysis table. So you switch back to your dashboard and select Yangon. So you can see the logic. We first of all acknowledge the range where we have this Yangon, because had it been I have not acknowledged the range in my data set where I have this selected value, it will be invalid, except we say that this value does not exist. So what we did that first time, we specified the range where we have this value as my first criteria, then comma. Once you add a comma, you can see it here. It has shifted to what? Criteria range 2. So criteria range 2, applying the same logic. Criteria range 2 is where sex is equals to what? Female. So who can tell us criteria range 2? Miss Glory, can you tell us criteria range 2? Is Miss Glory still here? Good.
Is
Please, can you?
where the sex is.
That means we are selecting values under what? Gender, right?
That's gender, yes.
Good. So I go back to the data set. Then I will capture. This is gender. This is your criteria range 2, which means that what? This is where your second criteria value is. So let's take everything, comma. So what will now be our criteria 2? Our criteria 2 was not listed there.
Female.
Good, female. But that female was not listed in your dashboard. We only listed what? City. So which means that we are to select our criteria 2 from the data set itself. And when doing that, please, you must select the first female. If I select this second female now, it's going to what? Exclude the summation of this particular record. So please take note, anytime you are selecting your criteria from the data set, it must be the first value of that criteria, which is the first female. Then I'll insert my comma. And look at our function, is still increasing. Now the focus has shifted to what? Criteria range 3. Criteria range 3, Mr. Okay, let me just continue because of time. Criteria range 3 is where we specify in our analysis question where quantity is greater than 7. That is the third criteria. Where quantity is greater than 7, which means that our criteria range 3 is the selection of all the quantity value. Now, once you have selected all the quantity value, remember the operator that is involved. The operator is greater than, not equals to. It's a logical operator. So how do we bring it here? We don't have that operator in or define in any cell where we can just reference it. So the way we are going to do it is this. So from here, you come to your formula bar to compute it. So remember that from here to this place is the range, is the quantity range, where this is you put a comma. After the comma, you introduce your quotation because you are supplying an external value, a value that is not captured in your data set. That is why we are quoting it like the one I showed us in our slide where I quoted not. So that is the idea. But the reason why I have not been quoting female, why I have not been quoting city, because city is already captured in one of the cells. So we are referencing the cell that is storing Yangon, and we also reference the cell that is storing female. But in the case of greater than 7, there is no cell to reference. That's the reason why we are supplying it. And whenever you are supplying it, it must be in quotes. because you are dealing with string, not number. The greater than and 7, if you were to be only 7, then you might not need to quote it because it's a number. But because of the greater than sign and the 7, that becomes a string. So how do I interpret that? I will simply do greater than, holding down your shift button, you locate the greater than symbol, the greater than 7, and then you end it with the same quotation. So with this, I've supplied my last criteria. Then I can hit what? Enter. So this is the summation of 5% tax from Yangon, where gender is female and quantity is greater than 7. So if I autofill, I'll get other values. So that is how to apply the sum ifs. So you can see the level of criteria that are involved, which the sum if without S could not solve for us. So we should be expecting this kind of analysis, depending on the office you are working and the type of data set and what your boss want from you. So there are times that they will give you a task that will require multiple criteria analysis. There are times they will give you a task that will just require one criteria. Now, mind you, I can perform the rule of the sum if with one criteria with this sum if S. What I will do is that I will stop my criteria definition at 1. So which means that the sum ifs can answer the question of sum if, but the sum if cannot answer the question of sum ifs. Is it clear, please? If you have any question, ask before we look at the next one, which is the count ifs. Any question?
I will just watch the video again. It's clear, though there are little gray areas, but I know with me watching this video and probably linking the other video, I'll be grounded in it.
Okay. For your audio, maybe you can do something about your audio is not stable. Okay, so okay, so let's quickly proceed. So like I said, so I want to do some formatting here. Now, most time after presenting your analysis like this is what we call tabular modeling. The what we call data visualization. Data visualization is very important. As a data analyst, you cannot present your findings with a table because this is a tabular visualization. And one of the challenge we have with tabular visualization is that you cannot easily identify the trend, the patterns, and the outliers. Always remember that there are 2 stages where you study your data. You study your data at the beginning before you start your analysis so that you can draft your analysis question. If we did not study that data, there's no way we will have been able to come up with all these questions. Now, the second stage where you study your data is after your analysis. This one is very important. So what I have done now is just display technical skill. It makes no sense to the stakeholder. It makes no sense to the CEO. It makes no sense to the manager. At the end of it, you are expected to write your observations. And if possible, you write your recommendation. And for you to present your observation, which is the core aspect of data analysis, you must study the reports. This is one report we have generated. These are different insights we have drawn or derived from a given data set. So we have to put it in writing. That is the executive report. So you either do that with PowerPoint or you use Microsoft Word or any other text editor. Because you are not going to present your report like this. This is your technical sheet where you perform your technical tasks or analysis in order for you to derive your executive report that will be tendered to the stakeholder for them to make or to guide them in decision making. So if you look at this now, you will find out that there is a second question outside this. So at the end of your analysis, there is always sub-question that will arise. You should always prepare for them. What are the sub-questions that are arising right now? After your analysis, what did you notice? What happened? What happened? That is one of the analysis type that I told you from the beginning. Descriptive, because what we did now is descriptive analysis. And at the end of our descriptive analysis, there is a question waiting for us. And the question is that, okay, now you have been able to summarize the 5% tax per city. So at the end of it, which of the city, what is the trend? The trend here is the city with the highest 5% tax. That's the trend. So if you look at the value now, because you're going to put it in writing, you open your PowerPoint slide, you write observation 1. At the end of my analysis, I discover that City Yangon generated or has the highest 5% tax paid by the customer. Now, you don't just capture the highest, you also capture the least. Don't forget, this is about decision making. The stakeholder, before they can make effective decision, they must know the highest and the least.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay.
Is Yangon the highest?
No. I'm just giving an example. Yangon is not the highest. So I believe as I'm explaining, you find out the highest. So I'm just trying to give out the scope so I understand how you present your findings. So like I was saying, I'm assuming that, okay, let's look at it together here now. If you look at the value here now, which one is the highest here? Napite, right?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Napite is the highest. Now, which means that what? Napite is the what? The trend. Now, I was trying to explain that you don't just capture the trend and present your report. You need to also capture the underperforming variable. Which of the city is performing the least among them? You need to find out. Because for them to make decision, probably because, or they might want to invest certain amount of money into this city. And they want to know which of the city they are to invest more. So with your analysis now, they can be guided that from your analysis, it was noticed that Napite generated the highest or paid the highest tax. Now, there might be some factors that could have led to Napitel having the highest tax paid. Could it be that Napitel or the products the customer purchased in that city have the highest amount, that probably the percentage of the tax that now led to it having the highest, or is the total numbers of transactions that happens there? So there are different factors you need to examine as the reason why Napite generated the highest, which is the descriptive analysis question you are answering. Now, look at the way it took us some time before we could know that NAPITAGE generated the highest. Why? Because we are using a model that does not enhance identifying trend. And that is the reason why I want to introduce another model which falls under data visualization. Now, anytime you hear the word visualization, please, it does not mean graph only, because most time people misuse this time. When they say visualization, all they are thinking is graph. No, visualization is a model for presenting, for visualizing, for conceptualizing your finding. So model here means what? The system or the structure. And you as an analyst, you need to look for a better and a simple model that you can see or the stakeholder can see and easily understand what you are saying. So don't use complex model. Like using only table, as far as I'm concerned, is a complex model, particularly when you are performing this kind of categorical analysis. If it is just one value now, it is okay. But when you are comparing two or more variable, table is not the best model for your presentation. So you should have it, but you should also generate graph. Now look at what I'm going to do now. I will select the whole of the data or the report and click on this icon. And the icon is called quick analysis. So what I'm about to do is that I want to provide another visual, which is graph, to support the tabular visual that we are currently having. So once I click on it, then it brings out different options. So the first one is formatting the chart. So the one I am looking for, a chart. So once I click on chart, so these are different graphical tools that can be used to visualize your report, your findings, your insights. So it is now left for you to choose which of these do you think is the best for visualizing the report. Now, each of them have their strengths. That is another thing you need to know as a data analyst. At what point I should use a clustered graph, at what point I should use pie chart, and at what point I should use other type. So if I click on more, that will take me to a dialog box where I can actually use more than one. So I can go to all chart so that I can access different graphical models for presenting my findings. So like I said, if you are comparing percentage, the best model is what? Pi. Now, but once the variables exceed 3 like this or 2, if for example now we have up to 10 cities listed and we analyze their 5% tax against them, now that pie chart will not be the best. Where the variables are much, please, the best tool, the best graph or graphical tool is either column or bar or, okay, let's say what? Either column or bar. Now, the difference between column and bar is that one will give us a vertical bar, while the other will give us a horizontal bar. So it's up to you. So you decide. So let me choose what? Column. Under column, the strength of this and the strength of this, they are not the same. You can see that this one have differentiated the categorical data with different color bars. Unlike this one, the bars are the same color. So in the case of identifying trend, you cannot compare how you can easily identify or differentiate one variable from the other where you use the one with different color. So I'm choosing this, and then I will click OK. So I have automatically generated a graphical model for presenting my findings. Now, like I said, you need to arrange your dashboard. Your dashboard must be well structured. So let me leave it like this so that we can. Okay. Now, but having it like this is not the best. You need to modify. You need to detail the graph. You have to make it look more presentable. So part of the things I'm going to do is to exploit different color. Like if I click here now, I will have a graph with background color so that the variables, the values on the graph can be more visible. So another thing I'm going to do is to title it, because if you present it like this, for example, now maybe you screenshot it and take it to your PowerPoint where you are reporting your final findings. There is no way the stakeholder or the people you are presenting this to will understand what is this graph representing. So to do that, I'll quickly double click on this. Just double click on it, sorry. Double click on it or highlight the letters and type. So this graph is plotting city against total tax 5%. So I can format it also by clicking on this frame, then go to your field, then from your field, choose a color. Now make sure that your color combination are good. Don't choose color that will be conflicting another color. So let me change the fill color to black, and then probably change the text color to white later. I can just come here and change the text color to white, and then go to my home if I want, bold it. Now, another thing we need to do, another way we can detail this graph is to select the graph, go to design, then go to add chart element. So from here, I will just go straight to add, data label. So I can use any of this. So just choose any one that I think is the best. Since the names of the variables are already mentioned here, Yargon, with their legend, there's no point of me, except if you check this outside ended, is only tagging the total task to the bus. But if I select data callout, this one is analyzing both the percentage and the total task. So depend on you. So I can choose this, and then you can also format it. You can also format the value. You can hold down the shift button or the control button. Let's see if I can select. So just select it, then go back to your format. Just in case you are not seeing the value and you want to make them visible, so you can select them. That is if it's necessary. So I'm only doing this just to explain some of this formatting. Okay. All right. So another thing I want to do, I want to format the background of the graph manually. I don't want to choose it here. So from my format, I can come to this shape field, then I choose my background by myself here. So you can choose any one. So let me just use this. Now, let's assume that you are in PowerPoint and you are writing your executive report, and you want to, as we all know, PowerPoint is just for presentation. So you can just write, let's say, my findings Now, you go to your inserts in PowerPoint, click on text box. Then you can write observation 1. Observation 1. After my analysis, I'm just trying to give us a sample. After my analysis, that is comparing total 5% tax generated per city where gender is female and quantity is, let me just use to save my time, greater than 7. You can expand your text box. I found out that it is the name of that Napite, that their funny name. Check the spelling. Okay, Napite as the highest followed by, we have not checked that, followed by, let's say it's going to be Yangon, and the list is this. So let's say after you have written your finding, then you want to bring in, you want to back your finding or that statement with this graph. And you want to take it from here to, I want to see where I can put it that it will not disturb other information. You can actually move it. So you want to capture this image. So all you need to do is to come to your search bar here. Just click here. You have this feature in all window. Just type SN. Once you type SN, it will bring out this tool. It's called Snipping Tool. So just take it, then wait for it to be activated. So you have it like this. Now, what I actually want to do, I want to screenshot this image and publish it in my final report. Because sometimes when you are presenting this report, you have to back your finding up with graph. So mere looking at this, they will not see the reason why you said Napite have the highest. So you are only trying to simplify your report. So now you click on new. Once you click on new, it will inverse the entire window so that you can capture the area you want. So you highlight only this area that you want to take from here. And then you switch back to your PowerPoint where you are presenting your finding. And then you press Ctrl V, it will paste it. So you have to determine your layout. I can decide to place it side by side like this. Each observation, you back it up like this. So you can do your formatting. I don't want to waste my time on that. So let me increase it since I want the height proportion to be the same with the graph for better presentation, and then this can also increase this. All these are needed. You must know PowerPoint. You must know how to use PowerPoint to present your finding. It's very important. All right, then you go to File to save. Of course, you select Save As. For those that have not used PowerPoint before, Save As, then browse your storage. So you should purpose in mind where you actually want to keep your report. So let me just keep it on desktop. So I will just say Final Reports. Because this is the one you are going to forward. This is the one you are presenting. So they are not expected to see all your working in Excel. So that is what you will be doing for me in your assignment. Once you are done with each analysis, you create a graph of it as additional model to back up the tabular model. And then you now go to PowerPoint, then tell us your observation. Then there is another thing that at times you need to add to your presentation, which is what we call recommendation. Now, recommendation comes in where you discover that the outlier is much. That is what? The differences. For example, now, let's look at this. Let's identify the outlier. To identify the outlier is for you to take each of the variable outcome and subtract it from the other. If I remove this from this, then the differences is what I am looking for. That is my outlier now. So I want to know the standard deviation. I want to know, despite that Napite is doing better, does it mean that other ones are not doing well? And for you to find out, it is when you find out what the outlier. So what I'm going to do here, I will just do a checkup here. Just put equals to, take this value, subtract, put your minus, then take this and press. You can see the difference is just what? For something. So let's assume that the difference is high. The difference between the highest and the lowest is high. It means that something is not done. That is, that particular variable that is underperforming, new strategy need to be involved. So that will inform the organization that, the difference is high. So for that reason, let's find out what could be the cause. So that is your outlier. So that is where recommendation comes in, where you are telling them that after your analysis, you discover that this particular variable did better than the other variable. And when you now calculate the differences, the difference is huge. In that case, you must find a way of canceling them on what to do on that particular underperform variable so that they can improve on it. So that is where recommendation. So if you check this now, the difference is not as if other ones are actually doing bad. Supposing here we have just one. If you compare one to other, you know that something is wrong here. So when you have that kind of analysis, you must not stop at presenting your trend, the highest. You also try and find out what could have caused this, and then you present that as recommendation for them to work on. So if you have recommendation, you can also add it to your observation. So like that PowerPoint, you can now come here and write somewhere here, recommendation. So mere looking at this graph, you can see that this is the trend. And between the other two variables, the difference is not much. That is another observation, which you can also write. Then at the end of your analysis, you also discover that Yangon and Mandalay have almost the same 5% tax generated, almost. And then if you want to prove it, you can even subtract the value and tell them the differences. You can also capture that in your final report. So I want to find out if we have any question before we look at the next function, which is the count ifs.
Hello, I have a question. Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. I think the explanation is clear. The only thing was that when you were trying to copy this
Okay.
and put in,
The image, all right?
yes, when you're trying to copy it and put in the PowerPoint, I didn't get. I think you were a bit fast. I didn't get
Okay.
how you
Okay.
did it.
Okay. So let me just do that before we proceed. Now, to copy the image, I activated a window tool called snipping tool. So what I did, the purpose of that tool is to help me to screenshot a particular portion of my screen because I need it in my final presentation. So I click on the search here.
Search. Okay.
Are you seeing the search button at the bottom? At the bottom, the taskbar here. Can you see my cursor? Let me find that you are seeing it. Can you see my cursor here? Can you see my cursor? Okay, now can you see it here? So you can follow it up. Can you see it here?
I've seen your cursor at the bottom. You have moved to.
Okay, good. I thought you were not seeing it. Now, you click on the search box. Once you click on it, it will pop up an interface. Then you just type S and N. Once you type S and N, it will bring it out. Snipping tool. You just click on it. So once you click on it, it will bring out this dialog box where you have your new here. So we have to inverse the entire window, which means that what? We have to turn off the entire window so that we can copy the aspect of the window we want by clicking on the new. Once you click on the new, you can see that the window is a bit dim now, which means that we have inversed the window. Now we can now use the plus sign to go and highlight the area you want. So you have automatically extracted this. If you want to save it, maybe you have not started presenting your finding on PowerPoint, but you can probably be saving these images somewhere. Then later you insert them from wherever you must have saved them. Then you can now think of saving it. If you want to save it, you click here. You go to this icon. It will take you to your storage. So automatically, I want us to observe each time you do that, it's automatically save copy in your picture folder. You can see these are the 2 times we have screenshotted. So you don't need to even waste your time. Each time you screenshot, just go to your image in case later on you want to use it. But in this case, since I'm already working with my PowerPoint, I will just switch back to my PowerPoint. I will just go back to my PowerPoint. And then just paste. Just paste. You can click here or you press Ctrl V. Then you have it here. Is it clear now, sir? Okay. All right. So, Miss Glory, hope you are with us.
Because I slept very late last night. At some point, I was dozing, but I'll go through the video.
Okay. All right.
And
All right. So now I want to quickly go back to Excel and proceed with the other function. So let me go to my slide and also explain. So the next function I want to explain is the COUNTIFs function. The COUNTIF function, which is also used for multiple criteria analysis, like the one we just concluded now. But the focus of this is counting. This is where you are performing counting analysis, whereby you want to find out the total number of times a variable appears in your data set. That is where you involve the COUNTIFs. And then let's quickly look at the syntax also. COUNTIFs is the function. Then we have criteria range 1. You can see that we don't have sum range. So in the case of counting, it's no longer our priority to start with a number data type, because the function can count whether string or number. Then criteria range 1, the criteria 1, criteria range 2, criteria 2, and so on. Then using the same explanation. Now let's go to our essay now and write out the question. So the question, let me just copy this and change it to the one we want to answer. So what we are asking here, this is our second question with the COUNTIFs function. So let's say B. Now, the question here, let's go to the data set, or let's still work with that same question, but we are changing it from summarizing or for summation to what? Counting. So we want to work with the same number, with the same question rather. So analyze the total numbers of transactions. So I need to edit somewhere here. Analyze the total number of transactions. Total number of transactions. Total number of transactions. So this will not be there. We are not focusing on tasks. Total number of transactions per city, where sex is female and quantity greater than 7. So to answer the question, so we can copy this model because city is still mentioned. I don't want to go back to my data set and start copying and start removing duplicates. So let me just change, let me delete this. So here, total number of transactions. Total number of transaction per city. Per city, want to say I can abbreviate it per city. Okay, where per city and gender is female. Let's write it in full. Where QTY is greater than 7. So the reason why I'm using this same question so that we can compare, because like I was saying the other time, I needed to know why is NAPITE actually having the highest task. Could it be that the number of transactions that happened there? So I'll find out from this counting analysis now. So total number of transactions per city and says, so you can find a way of reducing your question description. So here I will just type count.
Hello, sir.
Okay, I'm with you.
Sorry, please. Like I said, I'm going somewhere this very early morning to pick my children
Okay.
where they are. So I don't know. I'll taking permission to leave the class now. I'll go through the video rather.
All right, all right.
If there's any question. But do we still have a long way before the class ends today?
We still have, I cannot really say yet. We still have like 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, no problem. That's okay. Now, count if. So your criteria range 1 is to select cities in your data set. So let's switch back to our data set and highlight all the cities because that is my first criteria for the counting, comma. Sorry, that is where my first criteria is. Then I'll pick a city as my criteria 1. Remember, we have listed city in our analysis dashboard, so I don't have to pick from the data set. I pick Yangon, the comma, then It now introduce criteria range 2. My criteria range 2 is where my second criteria value is, which is the selection of the gender. So that is going to be my second criteria. Go to gender, then comma, then criteria 2 is the gender. So remember, gender is not mentioned in my analysis table. So I'll pick the first gender here, then comma. The criteria range 3 is where my third criteria is, which is a quantity range. Select everything. Then, of course, like I told us, where I will now manually supply the criteria, which is greater than 7. Remember, you quote that, the greater than 7. And then you hit enter. So you can see there are 47. So let's check for others. So you can see, so it is clearly defined. So in your observation, you can tell them as the reason why NAPUTE generated the highest task. You can see it here. It has the highest number of transactions. And if you do your range analysis, if you subtract this from this, you can see the differences. This is about to subtract this from this, subtract this from this. So that is one of the way you can know, because if you don't perform this counting analysis, sometimes it will be difficult for you to understand as the reason why one variable is actually doing better than the other variable. Any question? Any question? Mr. Jolly and Solomon, any question? This is clear, right?
I think it's clear. It's just the same.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so let's also present the graph. So you highlight it also. You click here and go to charts as usual. Now you can choose to use different charts. Let me use this. And then assume I'm putting it here. Then let me just enhance it here. Don't want to waste my time going through all that we did in the other one, because I believe you already know how to go about that. Okay, so that is for the second question that deals with the counting or count ifs. Now let's look at the next function, which is the average if, the average ifs. So the average if function calculates the average of cells in a range that meets multiple criteria. So they are all for multiple criteria, depending on the task. Now here, when you are working with average, the difference between average and sum is not much. The only difference is that sum will add all the values for you without dividing it by the number of entry. For average, we add and divide it by the total numbers of record involved. Now, that same principle that we observe when we were applying sum if is also applied here. In the case of sum ifs, I told you that the first argument must be number type. The only difference, instead of saying sum range, is now saying average range. Once you have captured that, then you can now follow the same pattern for other argument. So let's go to Excel and demonstrate that. So let me copy this same question to see and paste. So this is my question C. So what we are doing here is analyzing the range, sorry, the average the total average, analyze total average per city where sex is female and quantity is greater than 7. So I still need to copy and paste. Let me take this one. I think this one is better. Let me take this, Control C, and paste Control V. So let me change my alignments. Only that will reduce my graph. Okay, let's work with it like this. So let me change the title to total task. Let me just average. Average. Delete this. Equals to average ifs. Then our average here will be our average here will be the task 5%. That is going to be our average range, which is number data type. So I'll select all the values I have here, then comma. Then my criteria range 1 is where my first criteria is. My first criteria is the city. So I'll capture city. So this is just like we are repeating some ifs. And then my criteria 1 is mentioned in my dashboard, which is the Yagon, comma. Then my criteria 2 is where my criteria range 2 is where my criteria 2 is, which is the gender selection, the comma. Then my criteria 2 is not mentioned in my dashboard, so I'll pick the first female. Then my criteria 3 is the selection of the quantity, and my criteria 3 is not in my dashboard, so I have to supply it. Remember, I'll put everything in quotes. Greater than 7. Then, so this is the average. And then you autofill for others. Then you can also represent your graph by highlighting also. And then click here. Let me use another graph. Now bring it here. Now remember that you are supposed to be at the end of each analysis, as you are going to submit your assignment. At the end of each analysis, you must go to PowerPoint or Microsoft Word and write down your observation, then back it up with these graph images, please. So now I need to detail this because I need to write the variables on the sectors. So to do that, all I need to do is to go to add charts elements. So from here, I'll click on label, and I'll select any of these. So I'm hovering on them until I get the one I want. Remember, I told us that pie chart is best used for percentage analysis. So after this, so that brings us to the end of this set of aggregate functions. So it is assumed that we have covered both single criteria analysis aggregate function and multiple criteria analysis function. Now, what you are going to do for me, I don't want you to do your analysis with the data I use. Your assignment here is on this data. Remember I said I've sent it to you, is in that group. So you can download it and use it to perform your assignment. So your assignment here, you'll be the one to draft your analysis question. And then once you draft the analysis question, make sure you draft an analysis question that you should answer with the sum ifs. Another analysis question from this same data that you will answer with the count ifs and also with the sum ifs. Any question?
I have a question.
All right, sir.
Okay, when we're talking about data wrangling,
Okay.
the first thing is to make sure that we clean our data.
Good.
So far, with all this data, we are already clean data. There was no data we clean to the best of my knowledge. How do we now?
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Did you get my question?
Yes, you are talking about data cleaning, right?
Yes, and the data we are using, they are all clean.
Like I said, all these things, we'll get to some analysis where we will find some things not in order. We work on that. For example, now, if we get a data set that is not clean, like here in Excel, most of the things you'll be doing under data cleaning is changing date format, deleting column, deleting rows. So I think we touch most of these things. If, for example, now, the whole of this cells now, you don't want the value there, you simply select it and go to delete, and then you remove it. Then if you want to remove row, you delete, you select that row, you delete it. Then if you want to change date format, like I said, the way I structure is most of these things will come in as we go. You will see them. Because I don't want us to spend months on the basic of Excel only without relating them to data analysis. Because the reason why we need those basic is for the analysis. So the best place in this kind of scenario is to fuse them in when you are training. So each time, like today now, I use one, I remove duplicate. That is data cleaning. I copied everything and then I deleted duplicates. So you can see as I applied it in the course of my analysis now, it's more clearer. If I just bring value and start saying, okay, without having a goal, why we are doing this, sometimes it will look like an abstract. So that's why I said, let's be going. We will surely know how to do all this as we are going. Like the next question, the next analysis we are supposed to do, if not because of time, yeah, Abby. There is a place where we are going to do some cleanup. When we get to the lookup function, we are going to observe them. So let's keep going. Just make sure that each time we observe them, you take note of them, just like the way we use that remove duplicates. We still do more of them. Is that the only question, sir?
Yes, that's the only question. Thank you so much.
All right, sir. So I think we have to, Mr. Solomon, we have to stop here so that it doesn't get too much. So we have to stop here. Go and master all this. So it means that we have not completed today's agenda. We still have continue from where we stop. But I don't know if we can still have like 10 minutes so that, because that will actually help you just to expose us to the how to use the AI to draft questions so that you can use it to draft some of the questions you are going to analyze from this data I am giving us. Do we have up to 10 minutes? I know some of us want to rush out.
I mean, this is okay by me.
Okay, because you will need it, you will need this aspect to answer that, do that assignment. Okay, so let's quickly look into it. So it's part of what we plan. It will exceed 10 minutes, I assure you. Now, let me go to the slide so I can give us some background knowledge of it. Okay, so how to use OpenAI to derive data analysis question from a given data set. So I believe most of us must have been hearing ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a chatbot developed by OpenAI that uses natural language processing, NLP, to understand and respond to human input. It is a powerful tool that can be used in various ways, including drafting data analysis questions. You see, if you understand how to use this, you will not even stress yourself whenever you are given data to know what you are expected to analyze. So once you describe the data, you can leave the rest for ChatGPT. It will draft as many questions. Then all you need to do is just to compile those questions, either in Microsoft Word or in PowerPoint, and start taking them one after the other. Now, what does it take for you to use this OpenAI? Why it is called OpenAI? Because it is free. You don't have to pay, though there is a pay version, which is OpenAI or ChatGPT Plus. But the difference is not much. Most of the things you want to do can be done with the free version. All you need to do is to have an email address and then register with it on your browser. That is all you need. Now, I have already registered. So all I need to do is just to come here and search for what? ChatGPT. This is one of the AI that we are using as tech experts. Just like we are learning now, maybe you get stuck. You don't know what to do. Even in programming, this day we are not stressing ourselves. Think of any field. Once you know what you want, the challenge is describing what you want. So the reason why you are in a class like this is to be able to describe your challenges. Someone who have not attended classes like this, if you give him or her ChatGPT, will not know what to do with it because the person will lack the technical terms on how to describe his or her challenges. So for an expert like you, all you need to do is to click on it, then select it here. This is the website, https://openai.com. So once you click, this will take you to this environment. Then you can just click on what? Try ChatGPT. So once you click on it, it's going to take you to a prompt interface. So this is your prompt interface. These are the previous research. So every research you are doing on your account will be tracked here in case you want to go back to them. Now we want to search. How do I use as a data analyst? This is the data I gave to you to work on as your assignment. Now you open whatever data you are given as a data analyst. Most time, the person you are working for, the organization, they don't know your secrets. These are secrets that I'm revealing. They will just be wondering, this person is very intelligent for him to know that this is the kind of question that is expected, or this is the kind of insight that is expected to be derived from the data set. They will not know that you are leveraging on AI. Now, but what the AI needs, you don't need to give the whole of this data to the AI. You just have to describe your data and then tell the AI to do what you want for you. So what I'm going to do, I will copy the whole of this header. What the AI actually needs is the features. The features are the heading. Once it receives the headings, the features, knows what to do. Now you just add little text to it. Now, what I want to say here is I'm telling the AI that acts as a data analyst. So I will say act as a data analyst. Act as data analyst. Data analyst, help me draft analysis for possible analysis questions from a data set with the following headers. Data set with the following headers. Now you now list those headers that we copy. So I will now paste the headers. Now, once I click on go now, you see it will start writing. So let's hold on for it. Based on the data set header, here are some potential analysis questions. What is the gender distribution across organization? How many employees are in each state? What is the distribution of employee by department? That is analysis based on what? Demography. Employment details. These are some suggested questions. What is the average length of employment based on the hire dates? How many employees are on different state level, permanent or contract? What are the most common grades among employees? Financial insight. So you can see all you need to do is you copy. So when they say that AI is the future, is the now and the future, you can see it. Why somebody will be busy killing himself, learning English, knowing how to construct this. An AI user will just come here and get this, then maybe open Microsoft Word. Then Control V and paste. So you have all your questions here. So you can now save it. Save them where you feel you can easily access them. Oh, sorry. Would like to save on desktop. Let's say what? AI generated analysis questions. So you can do this, you can use the AI to do your assignments. Is it clear, please?
Yes, it's clear by me.
Okay. All right, so I think we can draw the curtain here. Let me see how I can convert the video as usual.
What's our next class?
Our next class, today is what? Our next class should be on Thursday. No, it should be on Friday. It should be on Friday.
That is on third.
Yes, yes. So we will have it that Friday. We will also have it Saturday. And we will have it if possible Sunday evening. So we'll run 3 days consecutive if we agree to that.
think Friday, Saturday is okay, but I'm not sure Sunday.
Okay.